Hello, good evening, and welcome to Science Fiction Snob Worth Watching. And today we're going to talk about the TV show, a Netflix TV show, Travelers. This is a show I highly recommend. Everyone should watch it. It's great. It's an all-Canadian production, but uh, don't let that keep you away from it. It's a great show, and I'm going to tell you why. First, a quick synopsis of the show. So it's hundreds of years in the future. There's been a whole bunch of various environmental type catastrophes, and the last surviving humans are like living underground. There's very small numbers of them. They find a way to send their consciousness, just their consciousness, back through time into the 21st century. These people are called travelers, and what they do is they assume the lives of people, and they are once they do that, they secretly work in teams to perform missions to try to save humanity from this terrible future. They want to change the future. So all they have is like knowledge of their history, and like they have Facebook, social media profiles of people to choose who they are. These teams get together and try to make small changes and change the way the future is set. So that's, you can just imagine. So that's a pretty good setup for science fiction. So now, why is this highly recommended? Now, it's just a good show, number one. I'll give you an example. So, The Walking Dead. I don't like monster movies. I don't like zombie movies. I don't like those type of stuff. I think they're lame. I hate them. But I love The Walking Dead. Why is that? Because The Walking Dead is not about zombies. It's about what people do when they're put in, situations of extreme stress. What will they do to survive? Travelers is like that, in that it's not. I mean, it's a science fiction show, but it's not really a science fiction show. It's about, what people can do. How do they? The science fiction is not. The big part of it. It's not spaceships and laser guns and all that stuff. It's about the characters. It's about the character development, what they do, and how do they deal with the moral conflicts. So part of that, the moral conflicts, is the travelers are from several hundred years in the future. They're more mature in a sense as a species than we are. They've got certain things that they will and won't do. For example, they don't want to kill anyone because they're afraid that would change the future. So there are scenes where they have to defend certain things, and they have a protocol that's in effect, which means they can't shoot anybody. So they have guns and they're firing at the police who are trying to stop them from doing something, but they're not allowed to shoot at them. So these kind of moral dilemmas that they have. Let's see other examples. I'll get to a few more examples of that when I talk about the characters. If you didn't know, if I didn't warn you before, spoilers. There'll be spoilers in this, and I'll try to keep them to a minimum. But the whole idea is I want to get across just how complex and how in depth and thought-provoking this series can be. So I'm going to spoil a few things in order to try to get you to see how great it is and start watching it. So I'll give you an example. In the first season, one of the things that they do is they set up this. They build this machine that is used to push an asteroid slightly off course. So this asteroid is going to hit the Earth in 18 months. It is it's sort of the first big disaster which starts humanity down this decline to where these people are in the far future. So they decide to change the course of this asteroid using technology that really doesn't exist. But it's almost partially built. They don't want anyone to know about it. They have to they get this take this machine and modify it a little bit and use it. So they are ultimately successful in that. However, that changes the future. So in the future, in the future, the whole idea of what the travelers are doing is basically it's their culture in the future appears to be very united amongst this idea. These people are sacrificing themselves to go back in the past. They're happy to do it. Nobody questions this plan to go back into the past and make these changes. So when they complete their first big mission, there is a group of some sort of one of the groups in the future. They're living underground in some sort of underground bunker or something like that. And one of the smaller bunkers has in the future had been destroyed, but somehow the change they make, this bunker does not get destroyed, right? So now all of a sudden that takes a little bit of pressure off of their society. So now all of a sudden, the travelers that we are focused on, there are a little bit of pressure has been taken off them, and now in the future there's not that 100% belief in this plan to go back to the past. So all of a sudden we find our travelers that they're like, there's some other travelers are coming back, they're meeting them, they're like, oh yeah, no, we don't know if this is the right thing to do, we should be doing this. Like, what? Like, what's going on, back in the future? Everything is, everyone was 100% behind this plan. It was like there was no, nobody complaining about it or anything like that. And now all of a sudden, there's some questions about the plan. So that's just one great way in which they take this plot and they project what a change to the future might add. So now you've got this whole the second season is, not to spoil too much, but part of the second season is focused on this rebellion within the travelers, and there are a group of people from the future who don't agree, and they start sending themselves back. So now our travelers don't know. They're getting orders from the future, do this, do that. They don't know if it's orders by their group that they believe in or by this new group, and they're not quite sure what is going on. That is part of the setup for the third season as well. So there's some, we don't know what's going to happen quite yet, but I'm quite interested to see what happens. Some really good further things that really make me admire the writing in this. So there's one point in the second season where they want to conduct a real-time conversation between someone who's in the past, our time, and the future. Now, how do they do that if the only thing that they can do is send consciousness back into the past? And when you send this I was talking about the moral implications of this. So when they send the consciousness back, it wipes out, the person they take over, wipes out their consciousness, and the new consciousness is put into it. So part of their plan, they only take over, well, not only, but they try to only take over people who are about to die. So they come in and they know someone's about to die through the use of social media, Facebook, various records that they have access to somehow. Some records survive, and so they take over people like 10 seconds or so right before their death. So that their moral reasoning being that, okay, well, this guy's going to die anyway. If we take him over, a little bit before his death, then we're not really changing the future. We're not taking away this guy's life. He's about to die, so we're just simply going to use his body for a bit. So they have these very strong moral feelings about what they do generally, but also, in the first and later second season, what happens when things go, largely awry? How willing are they to, break their moral code? So that's another, big aspect of the series. Now let's talk a little bit about the characters. So the main character is played by Eric McCormick. He's an FBI agent. The first episode is really well set up with all these people taking over their bodies, and him being the last one. It's pretty good setup the way that's done. So So this FBI agent, he was about to be killed in a shooting, uh, and they take him over. Just before that, he can avoid the shooting and he doesn't get killed. So now, some of the moral quandaries that he's under. He's now. The FBI agent is married, and of course he goes home. So his wife. So now he is, he's not really the wife of this woman. Like mentally, he might have the same body, but he now lives with her. Is he going to sleep with her? What is he? He has to, but yet he's not really his. Himself. And there's some scenes where he's like having his she notices changes in him because he's like having his morning coffee and he's saying, oh, he puts milk in the coffee. Oh, what's this? And he's like, what's milk? And he's like, it's what? Milk from a cow? They obviously, they don't have cows anymore. They don't drink from milk from them. He just thinks it's horrible to be actually drinking milk from a cow. So she notices these changes in him as well. So he's got to deal with that. His wife and his wife and him were trying to, not really him, but they were trying to have a baby. She wants to have a baby. He's not supposed to have. They're not supposed to have. They're not supposed to create any more children. Like they're not supposed to have. This guy that he's taken over is technically dead, so that he would never have a child with his wife's. But she wants to have one really bad, so he's torn in that sense as well. In addition, he's a leader of a team of 5 or so travelers, and he's actually, in the future, he's had some sort of sexual relationship with, one of the members of his team. But now, he's he's got his wife, and she's got her own, family that she has to deal with. So all these sort of things just mix up in that character. There's another character who's their medic and probably the most intelligent person. They get she actually gets put into the body of a person who is mentally handicapped, and they're tricked. They try to pick these people very carefully, but they put this woman and her, the person who looks after her, they put up a fake Facebook profile where she says she's a journalist, just as something, a thing for her to do. But this tricks the travelers, and they think that she's, a normal person. They go back in time, they find that she's mentally handicapped, and she's like, there's a comment she makes. First of all, she changes completely. She's no longer, the person she was. It's a miracle. She's now speaking normally and is able to think normally and everything. And the other thing is she makes a comment about how this brain is not, I have trouble fitting all my knowledge into this brain because it's so limited. So problems happen all right at the beginning. There's another character who he's like their tech guy, and he comes into the body of a drug addict. I believe if I remember correctly, the drug addict, he's still addicted. They take over his body. He's still addicted, but his death was listed as like a suicide. His family was able to cover up or something the part that it was actually a drug overdose because they're embarrassed about it. So they wouldn't have picked him because he's a drug addict. But they go, oh, it was a suicide. All right, well, that's no big deal. We'll take his body just before he commits suicide. Everything's good. But they don't know that. So now this guy he's addicted to heroin, and he's trying to deal with that while they're doing all these other things. Well, they're trying to carry on their missions. Perhaps just one more discussion of one of the other characters. Perhaps my favorite. Perhaps my favorite character. He's like the oldest guy on the team. He's like 100. He makes a comment saying that. So he's much more mature even than the other characters. He's seen a lot, but he's put into the body of the youngest member of their team, like some 18-year-old kid who is a football player. He's like a meathead. He is the typical quarterback / bully of his high school, and the way he dies is he's he's a typical hothead, and he goes into some MMA fighting thing, and he dies there because he gets punched in the head, and has a brain hemorrhage or something, and he dies. So they take over his body just before that happens, and he says, I quit the fight. But his personality is completely different afterwards, because he's no longer this immature 18-year-old who's always doing stupid stuff. He's now, he's 100. He's way beyond this. He can't even act this way, in a sense. Like, he's trying to his father is giving him crap for all this, and he's like, yes, Dad, you're right. I will try to be better in the future. And of course his father's like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, you've never said this to me before. He has to deal with his girlfriend, and she's all, oh, she's used to dealing, and he's just like, no, you should, she expects him to say, no, don't go to college because, I love you and I want you to stay. He's like, you should do what, is best for you. We're very young, and who knows what the future holds. A completely different personality from than what he would be like before. So it's quite interesting how they deal with these characters. That pretty much finishes my synopsis of Travelers and why you should watch it. It's a great show. There's 2 seasons on Netflix. The 3rd season is coming exclusively on Netflix. I couldn't find a date yet, but it should be about around Christmas of 2018. Probably hear about it fairly soon. Totally recommend it for everyone. It's a great show. My wife, who doesn't like science fiction that much, I can watch it with my wife. It is that good a show, and I don't understand why it hasn't gotten a bigger following. I think people just don't know how great it is. Rotten Tomato score, it's got 96% average, and I say that is completely correct. That is that's a great numbers, and that reflects how good it is. So, Travelers, highly recommended. Reason to watch it. It's a science fiction show that anyone can enjoy. Some science fiction, great science fiction concepts, some science fiction elements, but not heavy on the science fiction. Everyone will enjoy it, even those who don't like science fiction. So, give it a try. Tell me what you think of the show. I'd love to hear your comments and hear what else you're watching. Have a good day.